Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of Dr. Robotnik String Races. In between videos, yada yada, collectors and spray cans, blah blah blah, playing the Chao Cup today. You get the idea. Let's skip the formalities and get to racing, starting with Weiss Waterway. This track takes place in a swimming pool, which establishes the water theming that is one of the two things that tie the courses in the Chao Cup together. Unfortunately, the course kind of sucks though, as the only interesting thing the level has going for it is this little slab of off-road you need to drive through halfway into each of the incredibly short 5 laps. The other thing that ties the Chao Cup together is how easy collecting spray cans is, as the can found here is just sitting behind this pillar in said off-road section. Collecting it was the only thing of note I did before winning the race, although Knuckles did make those final corners a little closer than they usually are this early into a Grand Prix. Ice Paradise was a more interesting race than Weiss Waterway, both due to the eccentricities of the course and the repeated incidents with other racers. To start off with, I got the boost for being first past the start line, but the very first thing the track throws at you is a series of tight corners, so that huge burst of speed probably hindered more than it helped. It was a little while later that, due to the weird physics that ring racers operate beneath the hood with, I got absolutely destroyed by another racer bouncing off a tripwire, causing me to go flying into the stratosphere and landing in last place. Due to various mishaps, that's more or less where I stayed for the first 2 laps, until an extremely lengthy bout of invincibility let me reach first right as I started lap 3. More mishaps, some caused by my own incompetence and others due to plain bad luck, caused me to slip a few places, but I made my way through the ending fray to pip a 2nd place. Dark Chao Garden was the first prison break arena of the Chao Cup. try and see if you can guess the second one whilst we're here, and was definitely the easier of the two. As long as you can avoid the Hudoros and landmines scattered about, both of which seem to be getting increasingly more common to spice up otherwise basic battle mode arenas, and are somewhat competent at lobbing your Gatsa bombs, the whole thing should be over pretty quickly. You can definitely do it a lot faster than I did though, as during this scripting process I saw a lot of springs to get to higher areas that would have saved me a lot of time. Sunsplash Getaway sucks. On controller, at least. Because so much of the play area is considered off-road, which triggers a rumble effect on compatible controllers, that by the end of the 5 laps, I was almost beginning to hurt my wrists. That is, sadly, the only thing that this otherwise basic course has going for it, by the way. You have to try and stay on the thin strip of land that the game legally considers road, else suffer reduced speeds and incredibly slow drifts. The spray can is right out in the open to collect, although I only went for it once and missed, but the only other event of note is how I stole the race at the very last second. Slick. Phase 4 is a pretty mundane 2-lap course, at least from what I was able to experience, even if the visuals are pretty nice. It just blends in with a lot of the other magical courses that the game has, and by this point I must have gone through 5 or 6 of them, so the only thing that this has going for it is a giant sword in the background and a big jump. At this point though, the AI had reached the point of outright cheating, and so while I was hardly bombarded by items, I was in a 2-horse race with a Knuckles that was ring boosting far more often than was physically possible. In the end, I had to settle for 2nd place, and after an egg mark explosion, even that was only possible by sacrificing every last one of my rings. I think I chose the worst possible direction to start with in Hero Chao Garden, as after destroying just 2 of the 11 prisons floating around, I ended up in a lake which I could only escape by going all of the way back in the direction I came. By the time I realised that, I had nowhere near enough time to carry that out, and so finished with an E rank, stand for embarrassingly poor result. Azoraxium may well be one of my favourite courses yet, because it is so incredibly fast. I think it's because it's entirely submerged, and so the entire course has a water current that increases your top speed. That does, unfortunately, affect your handling, and makes it quite difficult to turn at times, and so I struggled on my first attempt to get to grips with how I needed to adjust how I played. Note whatever causes this to happen, as well as this final corkscrew where I just couldn't maneuver around these tripwires and drop from 2nd to 8th, as the two biggest reasons I needed a second attempt, which went much more smoothly. My cheating rival Knuckles may have come out of nowhere to steal the first off the line boost, but my newfound knowledge of where best to drift to actually take a corner, and where it was best to just bounce off the walls and soldier on, meant I was able to keep first through much of the race. Even a George right at the finish line wasn't able to stop me from finishing on pole position, which ultimately ended up being a tiebreaker between me and Knuckles, and allowed me to win the Chao Cup. Sadly, middling performances throughout the Cup, and an especially poor handling on my rings meant that I was unable to begin my conquest of the next set of Sealed Stars. But there was still cause for celebration, an avalanche of new unlocks, including multiple new characters. There were the usual culprits like the next cup, and the CDs, and the spray cans, but there was also Echo, for finishing Azure Axiom in first, and Gum, for collecting my 75th spray can. Those two also caused me to cross the 50% unlocked threshold for races, which meant that I had also unlocked Heavy Magician, whom I haven't yet tried out, but I know has the ability to transform into other characters. It's definitely more of a rush to collect a new character than it is to get yet another follower or CD, so 3 in 1 cup is a very good feeling. But with that said and done, I hope you enjoyed the video. Next time, I'll be competing in the Wing Cup, but for now, ciao.